If your history has been glorious, only a fool will not recount it. I'm proud of it. And when people, a couple of days ago, somebody was mocking the Karnataka education minister for saying that, look, Newton did not discover gravity. Absolutely true. Newton did not. It was Brahmagupta. Now, when you give the proof and still you mock someone, so you can't change their mindset. So I'm absolutely not for glorifying what is our past. But at the same time, let us not take it to the extent where we add everything to it. Like, ye bhi humne kiya, wo bhi kiya, viman bhi cha. It's not true. DNA discover kiya. Nahin, it's not true. A lot of things we did, especially in the theoretical sciences, medicine, for example, or and Ayurveda. In fact, my book is coming out later this year on forgotten Indian scientists. And a lot of it, I take it back to Ayurveda, I take it back to hundreds, even thousands of years. So our past has been glorious. We don't need to, kind of invent things that we did not invent in order to make it more glorious. It is monumentally glorious.
जितने आतंकवादी हैं, जितने अराजक तत्व हैं, आप सुधर जाइए, नहीं तो अगर बजरंग अपने हाथ में सुरक्षा ले लिया तो फिर आपके साथ मुश्किल होगा।
हर हकीकत शुरू में एक सपना होती है। हर हकीकत शुरू में एक सपना होती है और जब करने वाले लग जाते हैं तो वो हकीकत हो जाती है।
जब प्रभु रामचंद्र वन से प्रवेश करते करते चल चल कर जाते थे और पैर में कभी बार तो कांटे लगते थे, कंकड़ लगते थे। रात को जब लक्ष्मण जी, प्रभु रामचंद्र लेटे हैं और लक्ष्मण जी चरण सेवा करते करते कांटे निकालने का प्रयास कर रहे थे। रामचंद्र बोले मत निकालो। अगले दिन उसी कांटों के साथ प्रभु रामचंद्र चलने लगे, अभी और नए कांटे लग गए और खून लगने लगा। 1-2 हफ्ते के बाद मैया सीता को लक्ष्मण जी कहने लगे मेरी सेवा नहीं हो पा रही, तो मैया बोली मैं आज निकालूंगी। तो वो चरण स्पर्श की तो प्रभु राम बोले मत निकालो। मैया बोली ये क्या चल क्या रहा है, रहस्य क्या है भगवान? प्रभु राम बोले मैं क्या करूं, मैं प्रतिज्ञा ले लिया हूं, कोई एक बार चरण स्पर्श कर लेता है मैं उसको कभी नहीं त्यागता।
7 करोड़ घर परिवारों में गैस योजना पहुंचाकर उन्होंने उनके घर से धुएं की चोरी की है। और सुनो कांग्रेसियों, वो चाय बेचता है, सम्मान नहीं बेचता। स्वाभिमानी है, स्वाभिमान नहीं बेचता। अरे स्वार्थ के लिए वो खानदान नहीं बेचता। और हुजूर आपकी तरह वो हिंदुस्तान नहीं बेचता।
अगर कोर्ट का फैसला ये आता है कि वहां मंदिर नहीं मस्जिद बने तो क्या आप सहमत होंगे?
तो उसको तो हम पार्लियामेंट में बदल सकते हैं।
तुम्हारे उड़ते हुए घोड़े कुरान में आके लिखा है बकायदा, उसका मजाक बनाना शुरू कर दूं। 6 साल की बच्ची से प्यार करके 9 साल का यू हैविंग सेक्स विद हर, इससे प्रॉफिट मोहब्बत है, बोलना शुरू कर दूं मैं? आर्टिस्ट फ्लैट अकॉर्डिंग टू कुरान 88:20 बकवास ना कीजिए। उड़ते हुए घोड़े पे बैठकर फोन हो जाइए।
As an individual, as a player, where through some meditation, through movies, some authors, some puja part, kind of this, that helps you becoming more stronger mentally.
Do I look the puja part?
जय मागा, जय मागा।
Do you think the Japanese would have been as a ruler of India?
Maybe just as barbaric as the British were. The British were absolutely barbarians. We don't realize that because we are taught a very sanitized version of history. In the aftermath of 1857, they killed over 10 million Indians in just a few years. That is a horrific number. And the number of Indians they killed in engineered famines exceeds 100 million. That's what the British did from the 1700s until the 1940s. More than 100 million people, Indians, were killed. Innocent men, women, children were starved to death deliberately by the British. So the British were the epitome of barbarism, even though they pretend to be very classy and all that. The Japanese could possibly have been just as barbaric because we know what they did, their track record in Asia, expanding towards India, westwards. We know the kind of horrific atrocities they perpetrated in China, in Nanjing, in Indonesia, in other places. Absolutely horrific. So the same thing could have happened conceivably in India had they captured India as well.
So for instance, when the Ayyappa Swami case was going on, the Sabarimala case was going on, I had this brilliant question being asked on a regular basis. Anjaneya Swami is also brahmachari, Ayyappa is also brahmachari, women are allowed inside his temple, why are they not allowed in this temple? So imagine, and these questions were not coming from non-Hindus. These questions were not coming from the Christians and the Muslims. These questions were coming from Hindus, from educated families, supposedly educated families, let me add that caveat, and who called themselves Hindu families. So their education is certainly in question and their Hindu claim is also an insignificant question according to me. And these were the ones to ask this question. Now, therefore, it clearly tells me that it is mighty convenient of us to sit and blame the judiciary or the government or everybody else. But these people come from the society, and this is the reflection of the current state of the Hindu society. That these people who occupy these positions of power and responsibility obviously have choices that you have thrown up as a society. And therefore, there is no point in pointing fingers at one particular institution and calling it an anti-Hindu institution when the society itself has become unconsciously or subconsciously anti-Hindu without knowing that. And they believe that they are Hindu simply because they visited a temple.
Romanis, can you please, because something very Indian connection to it.
Right, the Romanis are also known as the Gypsies. Who are the Romani people? So about 1,000 years ago, the Turkic invasions of India began. Now, these mountains are now called the Hindu Kush Mountains. It means the killer of Hindus. The reason is that these Turks, they used to take tens of thousands of Indian slaves out of India into Central Asia through the Hindu Kush. And that mountain range is so cold that incredible numbers of Indians, Hindus, died there. That's why it's called the Hindu Kush. They all have Indian matrilineal lineages, not patrilineal lineages. Eventually what happened is that they realized that they took too many Indians there and they did not need so many Indians. And most likely they did not want to slaughter them all on their territory. So what they did is that they set them free. That happened about 1,000 years ago. And ever since then, these people who are called the Romani, they have been wandering around Europe and they have been subjected to all kinds of horrific atrocities and racism which happens even today. So Romani people in Europe are Indian origin people. Most of them look like us.
But there are people from South who are opposing Hindi. Why don't you get lost into a forest or a mountain? Who asked you to be social? Tribals have no language disputes. They are not opposing English. Why? Your grandparents came from England, is it? Because your politicians are not teaching you that. It doesn't fit in their political agenda. They're brainwashing you saying that Britishers are our grandparents. They are the ones who did social reform activities, saving women and uplifting the whole nation. I will make a separate video on busting this myth of what Britishers actually did to Indians. Anyways, the issue is, mostly speaking English is not against your culture, but speaking Hindi, our Hindi which is born here, is against your culture. What nonsense is this?
Many countries kept vaccines away from Africa, so we were last in the queue. We all came out of COVID-19. Africa was particularly hard hit. We were the last to get vaccines. Everybody hoarded the vaccines, except India. I must say India allowed us to purchase vaccines from India early in the pandemic.
And if you look at history, much of the US was built out of wealth plundered from India. Look up Yale University. Eliyahu Yale was a British East India Company official who eventually ended up founding Yale College, which became Yale University. His entire wealth came from the wealth plundered from India. And there are lots of other examples. Much of the US has been built with wealth extracted out of India. And much of the West has been built from wealth stolen from India. And therefore the US shares responsibility for the 2 centuries of national humiliation experienced by India at the hands of the British.
और ये देश हिंदुओं का देश है, हिंदुत्ववादियों का नहीं।
रुको जरा, सब्र करो।
यहाँ के पूर्व सांसद जब एक मंदिर में गए और मंदिर में पूजा करने के दृश्य बैठने के लिए घुटना टेक करके जैसे बैठे तो पुजारी ने कहा भी पालती मार के बैठा। उन्होंने कहा भैया ये मंदिर है, ये मस्जिद नहीं है। अब जिन लोगों को इतने भी संस्कार न हो, वे हिंदू और हिंदुत्व के बारे में भी इस प्रकार का दुष्प्रचार करें तो उनकी